Well, Jesse, the rumors are flying. We know that the Arizona Diamondbacks are going to be in the market to improve this team, and they're going to have to get a little creative on how they do so, right? Of course, it's hard to look at this roster and determine exactly what they might pinpoint to improve. We feel like they're fairly set at a lot of positions. You know, that it feels like the outfield's set. A lot of the infield is set outside of the first base, depending on what happens with Christian Walker. But we do know that the Diamondbacks are targeting improving their bullpen. And of course, now with pitching coach Brian Kaplan in place, we know that this team can start looking at their options. We have heard reports, rumors, if you will, that the Diamondbacks are potentially looking to trade for Ryan Helsley from the St. Louis Cardinals. And we know Ryan is a pretty damn good relief pitcher in Major League Baseball.
Ryan Helsley is a very good relief pitcher in Major League Baseball. 66 and a third innings in 2024, a 2.04 ERA, 1.10 whip, a strikeout rate just under 30% at 29.7, walk rate of 8.7%, and a FIP of 2.41. Ryan Helsley, Derek, led all of Major League Baseball in saves in 2024 with 49. He was 49 for 53. That is a success rate over 92%. If you are looking for a guy to lock down the ninth inning, it is hard to imagine anyone better than Ryan Helsley.
There are a couple of elite closers in baseball, and he is definitely one of them.
Yes.
We know that the Cardinals are still, I'm not going to say in disarray, but I feel like they're still in a phase of...
They're sort of in disarray.
They're figuring themselves out again. They are figuring out their... what their core is and who they're moving forward with. Helsley's under club control for one more year at an estimate of $6.9 million. The Cardinals do seem fairly likely to deal him, according to reports. And I will say that it lines up a little bit with what the Diamondbacks would be looking for, right? The Diamondbacks are really just looking to be all in on 2025. Beyond that, there are options for a closer. We know that they are trying, I'm sure, to mature Justin Martinez into that role and get him possibly is to be their closer of the future. That could even, happen this season. But with Helsley, again, there's that same thing with bringing in, Paul Sewald, where everybody would kind of know their role, and it would allow a lot of the relievers that are currently here to kind of fit into their high leverage roles and middle relief roles and where everybody's kind of going to be. And it feels like it would all happen with just the acquisition of a closer like Helsley.
Yeah, and for the contingent of Diamondbacks fans that is tired of having closers that throw in the low 90s, Ryan Helsley would be a breath of fresh air. In 2024, Helsley's four-seam fastball averaged 99.6 miles an hour. It's been exactly the same pretty much for the last 3 years. Slider is in the upper 90s or upper 80s. He has a curveball that he throws every once in a while. Also, he is a very different type of pitcher than the Diamondbacks have had in their closing role for quite a while. I guess with the exception of Jay Martz, who did occupy the closing role for the team down the stretch. Well, I guess he didn't occupy the closing role because Torey Lovullo was never willing to call Justin Martinez the closer. Never did. So maybe I shouldn't say that.
Refused to.
So yeah, Ryan Helsley, even Devin Williams, who we talked about recently, who also is an outstanding closer, one of the best. Even Devin Williams, for as good as he is, more so is in the mid 90s, right? I think his fastball average is about 95. Helsley averages 100 miles an hour and has done that for several years now. So if you're a D-backs fan who wants to see a guy just throwing absolute gas in the ninth inning, then Ryan Helsley is about as good as you can do.
Well, considering that most of our pitchers throw 91 miles per hour, Jesse, I think that would be a refreshing change of pace outside of Justin Martinez, of course. But I again, what is this going to cost the Arizona Diamondbacks? We do know that there has been some interest, according to reports on their starting pitching, but that's not the only area that teams are interested in. And I'm kind of doubting the St. Louis Cardinals want Jordan Montgomery back. However, St. Louis Cardinals, can I interest you in one Jordan Montgomery? You're familiar with him. You know him. You love him. That's your guy, right? We'll bring him back home. He'll have a good time. He'll enjoy the weather. He has definitely been very complimentary about your weather there in St. Louis. So you can actually have him back for fairly cheap. We'll take Ryan off your hands.
Jordan Montgomery was pretty good during his time in St. Louis.
He was.
In all seriousness, maybe there's a world where St. Louis is a place where he could figure things out. I don't think you're trading Jordan Montgomery for Ryan Helsley straight up. I mean, I guess you would. I don't think the Cardinals are.
I absolutely would. I would do it right now. I don't even need. Let's just sign the paperwork. Let's get it out.
Yeah.
We'll forge my name. It doesn't matter. I don't have to be there for it. But what is interesting is, like, again, yes, obviously that's not going to be the deal. What would it cost though? Let's just, for argument's sake, take Jordan completely out of it, right?
Yeah,
there's a good chance here that the cost is going to be higher than most people would like to really discuss. There's a good chance that a name like Alek Thomas might be involved with that.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, considering the youth of Alek Thomas and the future that he could still have with this team, you're trading that for 1 year of an elite closer that you most likely are unsure that you're going to be able to bring back or extend beyond the end of this season. So I don't know. It's risky. However, it's to get someone that is this good, it's going to cost you more than many people are going to want to part ways with.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals it's a little hard to pinpoint exactly what they're looking for, but they're certainly not a team that's all in on 2024, hence why they'd be willing to deal one of the best closers in baseball in the first place. They're looking for longer term assets. So I don't know if they're interested in Alek Thomas, but that type of player, I think, makes sense for them. Someone that they would have team control of for a while.
A Drake Jameson, maybe.
Yeah, some of the Diamondbacks' young starters, Gilbert Diaz, guys like that you could envision staying in a rotation for a number of years. I know there actually was a report about Helsley and the Diamondbacks. I'm not sure exactly how credible it is. It's from @Cardinals_live on Twitter. They said source Arizona Diamondbacks with an arrow pointing to Helsley, and said that there were multiple conversations with Cardinals high interest discussed at GM meetings between the teams. I don't know if that report is credible, but I can say pretty confidently that the Diamondbacks, if they haven't already made a phone call about Ryan Helsley, they're probably going to do that at some point over the offseason. It makes a lot of sense as a team that's looking for back-end relief help. He is set to make about $6.9 million in arbitration in 2025, so it's a reasonable dollar value. But as you're saying, it would cost you something. You would have to part with at least one young asset that you probably really like in order to facilitate a trade like this.
Cam says Jameson is an absolute deal breaker. I agree with that because, like, where am I going to get the fire to put into my blood? Where am I going to get the fire for my blood? Where I need fire in my blood. Ina Jackson says Saccone.
After
what we saw in the
you have
MLB,
to be realistic. Yeah, no, yes, you have to be realistic if you're a Diamondbacks fan that someone like Slade Saccone just doesn't have a lot of trade value right now. I'm not saying it's zero, but if you're trying to get Ryan Helsley, it's gonna hurt. You're gonna give up someone that you like. Ryan Helsley is too good of a player, even for just 1 year of a closer. He's too good of a player to just sort of send the spare pieces that you're not using to the Cardinals in exchange for him. It would have to be one of those young assets. I'm not sure exactly which one, but I think Dre Jameson and Gilbert and I'm sure the Cardinals would love Jordan Lawler. I don't think there's any way the D-backs would trade Lawler for 1 year of a closer, but those are the types of names that I think the Cardinals would be asking about.
And on tomorrow's show, we're actually going to discuss the fact that the Diamondbacks are receiving at least some requests here, and it might be likely that they part ways with one of their young outfielders that we've all kind of come to love.
Well, they have to trade an outfielder, Derek. They're not allowed to let an offseason go by without trading a left-handed hitting outfielder.
But which
done it 2 years in a row.
5'10" outfielder are they going to get in return for that one that they traded away?
Right,
that's the question.
Yeah, they have to replenish the.
There has to be a surplus, Jesse. It's crazy for you to even suggest otherwise. But I think what you said is the key here. Is like these trades that they're going to make, especially considering this young team and how we've come to embrace. Like, I mean, it felt like even losing certain guys that we picked up during last season is tough, right? Like the idea of Kevin Newman not being on this team after what he achieved last year is that kind of sucks, right? So like again, we've been through a lot of ups and downs with these guys, and especially the players that were part of this team that made that run in the postseason last year. There could be names from that team moved. There could be other guys that we see a very bright future with that could be moved, but it's not going to be without, I guess, casualties in a way. Like you're not going to improve this team without losing something. And at this point, the Diamondbacks have to decide how much all in do they want to be on 2025. I once again think that with very little change, this team could be equally as competitive as they were last year. I think the key there is pitching. That's all that there is. The offense isn't going to be as good without guys like Christian Walker, Jock Peterson, but they're still going to be able to perform. I think realistically, if the pitching can be much better, this team can be just as competitive as they were last year, the way that they currently are structured. How much of the future do you want to mortgage? That's the question. And how much do you want to do it to be all in on a guy that you're only going to get potentially for one season? This team kind of hasn't done a whole lot of this. And even when they did make those moves last offseason, they were fairly conservative moves, like the picking up Randall Grichuk and Jock Peterson. Like that was actually
at the time they did not really blow anyone away.
Right. And the amount of money that they spent on them wasn't ridiculous compared to what you were seeing other DHs sign for and things like that. So I don't know. I think that this is a very, very good player, and I think the addition of Helsley to this team changes things immediately, right? Like,
yeah,
the idea there that you're no longer deciding on if you're going to go with AJ Puck or Justin Martinez in the ninth inning, or who's going to go when or whatever. All that uncertainty, especially thinking back to a conversation we had with Joe Mantiply, where he just talked about, how everybody knew their role coming in each and every day once they acquired Paul Sewald.
Right.
That's what's important. So even if they don't acquire a guy like Helsley, I feel like going after a closer that could help solidify things and kind of end the uncertainty that this team has had there late. I mean, it feels like the only time that we felt safe and secure was for that brief period in 2023 when we first picked up Paul Sewald. It was like a warm blanket, and now
I mean, and even then, I don't know if Sewald, he had experience at the position. There was a stability that the Diamondbacks hadn't had in a long time. But it's not like the results with Sewald were off the charts amazing.
They weren't flawless.
He had a mid-3 ERA in the second half, and then in the postseason, he was dominant throughout the first several rounds. I think his final postseason ERA was like 4 or 5 because there were some rough moments in the World Series. But yeah, it's not like Sewald put up like crazy numbers as the Diamondbacks closer. It's just that they hadn't had any kind of stability in that role for so long. It felt like an enormous upgrade. And you think about how important that was for the Diamondbacks, how much more important or how much bigger would it be if you got a guy like Ryan Helsley at the back end of this bullpen? It'd be pretty easy to dream at this point on the Diamondbacks having one of the best bullpens in all of baseball if Helsley were a part of it.